Good morning, y'all. We are live on YouTube, but we want to be live on Facebook as well. So we're going to bring in our Facebook groups. That's Atlanta Falcons fan on SI and Scott Kennedy Sports, and we'll get going. Hope y'all are having a happy Labor Day and have enjoyed the weekend so far. With Fulton County schools, the kids are out Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, so it's a long weekend here in Johns Creek, Alpharetta, Norcross, Peachtree Corners, where I live. So welcome in, everybody. This is the Falcons Podcast. Happy Labor Day. Happy game week. It's here. It seems like we wait forever for it to be here, and then it just goes by in a flash. We had some good college football and some bad Premier League to keep us busy this weekend, if you so partake. But it is time for some football. All of the speculation, all of the what do you do here? Should they have done this is gone. Now we can get into, okay, what are they doing? What should they do? What should they have done? What's the next game look like? It's here, and I'm excited about it. So we have to finish up with the last of the predictions, so to speak, of the season predictions. And I've seen some in the last week that just kind of had me scratching my head. And I wrote, it wasn't Albert Beer, it was Connor Orr of Sports Illustrated. He did this monster Herculean task of trying to predict the win-loss of every single game, and then he put it in a graphic. I'll drop I wrote up on it when I read it. I ended up writing up about it because it was 8-9 was the prediction. And here's in the chat the link to it. It was 8-9. I'm like, all right, so be it. But as he's going through and he's like, okay, for the Falcons to be better, there's a lot of, you have to buy in. There's a lot of questions that have to be asked. And as I read through them, and we'll go through these, I'm like, okay, well, the Falcons have answers to all these questions for the most part. These are the wrong questions. All right, genius. What are the right questions? Hey, that's a good topic for a podcast. So there's the three questions that I think, watching and following this team every day, that they need to ask, like, if this is going to go wrong or if it's going to go right, what are the biggest factors for this team going in? And I want to get into that today. That's the main part, and then we'll hit on any questions you'll have, and then we'll take the rest of the day to make sure that y'all have some good football content to watch. Whether it was college, had a lot of Auburn, a lot of Florida, Georgia. I'm sure Brooks has Georgia going over on SI. So first off, I want to say hello to Dylan Von Arks. Dylan, it is great to see you. Who's that in your? I'll have to check out your YouTube profile to see who that is in your thumbnail. But he says, just pop in on my lunch break to say hey. Well, hey, good to see you, man. Appreciate you being here. Thanks for the support, brother. Coach is here. He's supporting the show as well. He says, morning studs. That's all y'all. I'm just here. He says, appreciate your hard work and insight. Have a great week. And he's got the coffee emoji, so might as well hit this. Lion Coffee has asked about being a sponsor of the show again, so we might as well plug the Lion Coffee I'm drinking, because whether or not they're sponsoring the show, I'm drinking Lion Coffee. So hit it out. Check them out, lioncoffee.com. Silas, good to see you. Says, good morning, Scott and Nick and everyone in the chat. Yeah, I don't know if Nick's going to join. We didn't really confirm. Someone asked last week, hey, are y'all podding on Monday? I'm like, yeah, we're good Monday. And then someone goes, it's Labor Day. I'm like, oh, yeah, I guess it is. My anniversary is tomorrow. That's the one I have to think of, plan more in advance of instead of Labor Day. So good to see you, Silas. D. Sloan, good to see you, D. Says, what's up, Scott and Nick? Chat, Falcons in 6 days. And it's a one. I feel bad for the teams have to wait till like Monday Night Football on week one. I'd rather, wouldn't you rather play on Thursday? Would you rather have the first Thursday night game than wait all the way till Monday or Sunday night? Atlanta Connor, he says, let's start week one with a 1-0 start and show Arthur Smith what happens when he utilizes Bijan. I'm not, of all the things I'm down on Arthur Smith about, Bijan Robinson isn't really one of them for me. I asked this question to kind of a neutral, just kind of a fantasy football player stuff. I'm like, so where do you think, because that's the perception. Bijan was just shelled, didn't use. I said, okay, where do you think he finished the season in yards from scrimmage in across the NFL? And the guy was like, oh, I don't know. But since you're asking me, 20, 25, I was like, he was 10. He was 10th. He was 10th in the league in yards from scrimmage. That's not bad. So he was used. It was just kind of hit and miss. No, I don't think he was used enough. But Bijan still had 1,500 yards from scrimmage last year. He wasn't completely ignored, so to speak. Dave, good to see you. Jamal D says, yo. Let's see. John Robert coming in on Facebook. Victor, 3 biggest questions. Zach Robinson will be great as we hope with an offensive scheme and calling. Is the defense really ready to take the step forward? And lastly, can Kirk get us to the promised land? I have parts of all of those as my 3 questions. We'll get into that here shortly. Victor says 8 and 9 is BS. I saw your article, Scott, and you wrote it very well. Well, thank you. I'm glad you had something to say about that. Yeah, it's fun being able to. I don't think I took it apart on Connor Orr too much. But I put it in the link. But for those listening after the fact, Connor Orr chooses 8 and 9 for the Falcons, and he says there's a lot to buy into with this Falcons team when you take a step back and think about it. We have to buy into the fact that Drake London is good. And Zach Robinson's scheme is really ideally suited for him. Okay. Drake London is good. I don't have to buy that. That one to me isn't like, is this a question? No, Drake London is good. And we have to buy into the fact that Zach Robinson's scheme is ideally suited for him. We have to buy into the fact that Bijan Robinson will stay healthy at the game's most perilous position. We have to buy into the fact Kyle Pitts again, despite his length proving to be quite a thorny issue. And we have to buy into Kirk Cousins coming back from his Achilles tear. Okay, those are all questions, without a doubt. But my problem with this is for the Falcons to be better, does Drake London have to be good and Zach Robinson have to, he have to be a perfect fit scheme fit for him, for the Falcons to be better? No, there's other ways. If Bijan Robinson goes down, does this team fall apart? Are they in the tank? No, they have answers there. If Kyle Pitts is just kind of a mid-level tight end, does this team fall apart? Are they not any better? No. And if Kirk Cousins doesn't necessarily come back from an injury, does this team fall apart and they're not any better? No. If you only need one of those to hit for the team to be better than it was last year. That's the problem I have with it. It's like, if you wanted to say the Atlanta Falcons, are we buying into them as being a legit, team, a force to be reckoned with in the playoffs, then yeah, you need all those things. For them to be better than 7 and 10, they don't have to have all that stuff go right. One of those things going right, and this team is better. And like I said, those are the wrong questions. You've got contingency plans built on all of those. And one, Drake London is good. What about Darnell Mooney? And as I put down at the bottom, as I'm ranting about this, I'm like, we haven't even talked about the improvement on defense, the guys that are coming in on defense. If Kirk Cousins isn't any good, you've got Michael Penix. You've got redundancies built in. This team is better at quarterback this year with Michael Penix than it was last year with Desmond Ridder, who's on a practice squad, and Taylor Heineke, who you shipped off for a 6th-round pick. A 23-year-old, and I wrote it. This wasn't hyperbole. If Michael Penix was the quarterback of the Atlanta Falcons last year, they would have been better than they were. That's it. And he's going to be your backup. All right. Well, that's a pretty good insurance plan, a pretty good contingency plan. It's like, oh yeah, like, a senior in college is going to be better than a pro. Yes, he would have been. A 23-year-old 5th-year senior who threw for 5,000 yards and 48 touchdowns for Washington would have been a better choice at quarterback in 2023 than Desmond Ridder or Taylor Heineke. That's not a stretch. He's not even the starter. So, again, you don't have to, and that's the premise. There is a lot to buy in with this Falcons team when you take a step back. Yes, every team has questions, and we're going to hit on 3 of the biggest ones for me. But for the team to get better, every question doesn't have to be answered yes. One of them has to be a yes. That's it. For the team to get better, the team that's 7 and 10 last year, if they were playing in the NFC, let's say the AFC North, they were playing Cincinnati, Baltimore, they probably would have been 3 and 14. 7 and 10 was about the schedule. The schedule's not a lot better this year. So the schedule's not great. The team around that you've built is good. There's contingency plans built in, especially at the game's most important position at quarterback. This isn't the New York Jets. You don't have one injury to Kirk Cousins / Aaron Rodgers, and your season's over. There's a contingency plan built in. So while this team, there's a lot that has to go right for this team to truly be a force in the NFC. Yes, I'm with you on that. For this team to win 7 games, one more game, if they do all of this, Kirk Cousins, Darnell Mooney, a contingency plan in case Kirk Cousins doesn't work, and Michael Penix, Matt Judon, Justin Simmons, new coach, if they do all of that and win 8 games this year, heads are going to roll. We're probably going to fire both coordinators. The head coach usually gets the chance to fire their coordinators before they get the axe. If they win 8 games this year, there were big problems. Anyway, that's how I see that part of it. Keith and Ellen Johnson, good morning. Appreciate you being here. Eric Noah, good morning. Good morning right back at you. Pamela Johnson, good to see you. John Harrell, good morning to you. Matt PD fan, he's got a prediction already. Falcons 27-10 over the Steelers. I'll do predictions on we'll do it more in depth, but I like the Falcons in this one too. The Steelers have their own problems with Arthur Smith and Russell Wilson. They got their own problems going on. Chris Walker, good to see you. Michael Ranquillo, the Sunrise, he's here. Good to see you as well. Terry Clark, good to see you. See, Trillionaire, that feels like a newer name. Trill Forever, so that's where the Trill comes from. Says, rise up, Falcons going 12-5. Nando likes 12-5 also. Russ Casper, that feels like a newer name, so welcome in. He says the Falcons about to rise up in that rocket ship. Joe says the first 3 games are brutal. They should be careful not to start 0-3 with the Chiefs, Eagles, and Steelers. Week win is a must win. You know what? I've said that before, and I agree with you. It's not. This isn't a big. Oh my God, what an amazing analyst to look at the schedule. Here's the other thing about the Connor Orr's SI piece. He's got the Falcons going 3-2 in the first 5. And only winning 5 more games the rest of the way. Brother, the first 5 games are the hardest on the schedule. He's got beat the Steelers, lose at Philly, lose to KC at home, beat New Orleans, beat Tampa at home, 3-2. If this team goes 3-2 coming out of the gate, I'm never going to be happy with 8-9. But then, you lose to Carolina, you lose at Tampa Bay. Okay, I probably will pick that too. Lose at Denver, who he's got finishing 5-12. Lose at Minnesota and at Las Vegas and against the Giants, who he's got all of those teams with losing records. Man, there's 5 losses in there to teams with losing records. This isn't last year. Falcons lost. That was one of the bigger problems. What did they lose to? 5 of the teams that were in the top 7 draft picks last year. It was pretty poor. Michael, good to see you. 10 wins this season, Jay Black. I like that number. The over-under on wins is 9.5. 10 is right about there. Leon, good to see you as well. Hope you're doing well. And Russ comes in. He says, with Judon and Grady back between Rook, AK, and Harrison will certainly thrive if somebody's going to thrive, if not all. Linebackers full of speed and a secondary that's improved with the additions. It's going right. 11-6 at worst. Greg, good to see you. Thanks for the super chat. Hope your kicks are kicking. He says, good morning. The wisdom teeth are gone. Slowly feeling better. I hope you're okay on that. I think I told you I got mine done when I was 18. Got all 4 of them done at once. And it wasn't too bad, but I recovered a hell of a lot better at 18 than I do these days. How do you prefer I show my customs Falcons show work? You can email me if you I'll show a screenshot of it. You can email me if you want a couple of your shoes, and we can link them back to you. I'm Skinnity, S-K-I. All my redneck buddies in Auburn call me Skinnity, and it's a lot more available than S. Kennedy. Hell, there's 3 S. Kennedys in my house. So Skinnity at Gmail. Dom, good to see you. Good morning. Scott and Falcons Nation, Bulldog Nation, and Broncos Country. I know Dom's excited. Jason's good to see you. Morning, y'all. I got Atlanta over Steelers too, not because of a chance, but for a good reason. But because Pitt O-line is terrible, and Fields and Wilson. Yeah, I had just by reflex picked the Steelers against the Falcons because the Steelers have owned the Falcons, and frankly, the home field advantage isn't one typically when the Steelers and the Terrible Towels visit Atlanta. But I think it's going to be different this year. First game of the year, there's a lot of excitement. I think the Falcons fans will actually show up to the Falcons games, and it won't have all of those corporations in the lower bowl selling their seats to Steelers fans that have moved to Georgia. So good to see you. Robbie Red, I turned it off when USC took the lead. I don't know if LSU came back and won it or not. It was about 5 minutes left. And I forgot to look up to see who actually won that game. I turned it off. This game's around too late for me, man. I'm kind of lame. I wanted to get into the topic though, the 3 questions facing the Atlanta Falcons. So I went through Connor Orr's questions. There's a lot of buy on this. Those aren't the questions for me. How does this go wrong? And the Atlanta Falcons have their odds-on favorite to win the NFC South. The over-under on wins is 9.5, and that was before anybody's factored in Justin Simmons, who could help. So, I feel like I like the over on this one. I think the Falcons should win at least 10 games. I'll probably go 11-6 when we go through the schedule on Wednesday. But how can it all go wrong? What are the big questions on this one? Well, the big ones are your coaching staff, okay? You got Raheem Morris, who hasn't been a head coach for several years, so he's almost a first-time head coach. Not quite, but, failed 10 years ago. I think of that as a learning experience, and I advocated for him for open jobs for the last couple of years. I've compared it to Lane Kiffin. Lane Kiffin and Raheem Morris were thrust into the spotlight way too soon. They were brash, arrogant jerks, and they fell flat on their face. They both learned from that experience, matured, and they got those positions to begin with because they're both really smart. They're both really good coaches. They just weren't ready for the head job. Lane has elevated himself. I love Lane Kiffin. I couldn't stand him when he was first getting started. Raheem Morris, I couldn't stand him down at Tampa Bay. He was, they hadn't earned anything and they're running their mouth. But they've matured. They've gotten older. They've improved. They've gotten experience with all these other guys. But still kind of a question mark. And you know what? So were the 2 coordinators. Those are your questions. Is Zach Robinson worth a damn? What if Zach Robinson falls flat on his face? He's never called plays before. That's a concern. If I'm going to ask questions about this Atlanta Falcons team, that might be number 1. I got Raheem Morris, I got Zach Robinson, and I got Jimmy Lake. 3 basically all new in their own positions. That is a big question in this league. So I'm going to go with the number 1 question is the coaching staff. You like what you see, and frankly, when you look back at it, one of the reasons why it's not necessarily a huge concern is because the bar was set so low last year. I don't mind Arthur Smith as a head coach. I think as a guy who built culture and got his teams to play hard, did a very good job. And that's the number 1 job of a head coach. The problem was he was also the offensive coordinator. And you couldn't separate those 2. And as an offensive coordinator, he lacked a lot. I wasn't always one to just blame Desmond Ridder and Taylor Heineke. Taylor Heineke's played some good football in this league. Not for the Falcons, he didn't. And the match with Arthur Smith was really bad. So question number 1 is question on Bucks Rays Bolts comes in. He says, let me see here. Morris was not a good coach with the Bucks. No, he wasn't. He had 1 good season, and then it all blew up in his face because he was not ready for the position. But let's see where he, but I really like the hire this year for all the reasons I just went through. So number 1 question facing this Falcons team is the coaching staff. You got a new offensive coordinator, new defensive coordinator. Raheem can step in and handle the defense if he needs to, but he's still the head coach, and you don't necessarily want him to have his focus split. If he wants to focus on defense, let him focus on defense. But I feel that that's the way I feel about the question. The big question is right there. Second, The injuries. Okay. Kirk Cousins, that is a question coming in, but it's not just Kirk Cousins. I just blasted Connor Orr for saying, well, you have to have all these buy-ins. Kirk Cousins coming off injury. Well, Kirk Cousins is coming off an injury. When Kirk Cousins, when they were talking about signing, when he was a free agent, I said you had three big questions about Kirk Cousins. The contract, I've already forgotten three of them. The contract, the injury, and, can he still play? The injury looks okay. How much will it affect him? That is a question. Will that, how much is that going to affect the team? We'll see. How much will that affect him? We'll see. But I lump in all the injuries because it's not just him. So how will Grady Jarrett come back? Matt Judon, torn bicep. He missed most of last year. That's a big one. Troy Anderson, torn pectoral. That's another one. He's coming back. So that's four guys that you're penciling into the, pretty important players that are coming off season-ending injuries last year. So that's a question. And then I think the third and final question, and at ATL Jets, I'll get back to you as soon as we get done with this one. The third and final question to me is kind of a combination of the first two. Is how well do all of the new pieces mesh together quickly? How well can this coaching staff get these guys? How well do these guys bounce back? How quickly does Kirk Cousins start to play? Let's say he's perfectly healthy. How well does he mesh in with the new system? How well does Justin Simmons fit in? How quickly can Matt Judon become a force on the defensive line? All the new faces, how quickly can they mesh? That's my third question. And with the opening schedule being tougher, you might think it could be a rough start. If this team starts 1-3, I'm not throwing in the towel. I got a lot of new on this team. That is a question about how quickly things can mesh. Not necessarily, is Drake London any good? Again, even if all those things go poorly, this is still an 8-win team at least, based on just the sheer number of talent. I think back at it, I'm like, okay, Justin Simmons and Jesse Bates playing together. Okay, how quickly will they mesh? Probably quicker than Daron Harris and Eric Harris and Daron. I don't remember their names. Who won 7 games that year? All right. How good is Kirk Cousins and Michael Penix going to be? Well, probably not any worse than Desmond Ridder and Taylor Heineke, who won 7 games last year. All right. How good can Matt Judon be right off the gate? Let's see. I think probably by himself playing with 10, he's better than Ade Ogundeji and Steven Means, who won 7 games that year. So 8 wins, I'm not having it. I'm not having the 8 on this. If 8 happens, heads are gonna roll flat out. All right, I want to come back up to the super chat that came in. Appreciate you coming in, Blue ATL. Jet Jones, he said, "Good morning, Scott. Thoughts on the O-line?" I love the O-line. I really do. Jake Matthews, if Jake Matthews is playing for one of the blue blood teams that's in the playoffs every year, he's got a star on next to his Pro Football Reference on next to every year, because he's probably a Pro Bowler every single year. The man goes out there and does his job, and he does it well. He's just been toiling away for a Falcons team. Same with Grady Jarrett. Been toiling away for a Falcons team that has been subpar through a lot of his career. Move over. Matthew Bergeron was solid as a guard. He could be a long-term offensive tackle. He will take a jump from year 1 to year 2. Center Drew Dahlman, he gets a lot of flack from Falcons fans, and he's really good. You look around, PFF loves his run blocking, for one thing. He's like the 3rd rated center in the NFL by PFF. Chris Lindstrom speaks for himself. And then Caleb McGarry is improving. He's improved the last couple of years with his pass protection. I think he had his best pass protection year by PFF last year. Didn't feel like a huge liability. Didn't feel like the turnstile. If I'm facing one of the alpha edges in the league, do I want to give him some help? Yes, I do. And the Falcons brought in some tight ends that actually block. I said it was always ironic last year when the Falcons are playing the most 12 personnel. and they don't have a tight end that can block. Kyle Smith doesn't block. Jonnu Smith doesn't block. Michael Pruitt doesn't block. None of those guys blocked. You know who blocks? Charlie Warner blocks. So when you see Charlie Warner on the field and he's lined up next to McGarry, you can feel a little bit better about having some protection out there. So thoughts on the offensive line, and then Jet Jones. I actually like the depth. Let me. I don't want to mess up their names, all their names. So I like the depth on this because I was a big fan of Julian Davenport. I think he looks really good as a developmental tackle. He might be too old to be a developmental tackle. 1 second with me. Bear with me while I bring up the depth chart. But I know, Storm made it, and when he played a few times, he played pretty well. I think Kyle Hinton still made the team. Javon Gwynn was okay. Ryan Newsell's been a solid backup center. And then Storm was the other one. So there's the 4. And then if you go to the practice squad, let me see here. Julian Davenport is on the practice squad. I really like him. Andrew Stuber. So I think the depth in the trenches on both sides is a strength of this team. I really do. So I like the offensive line. I like the offensive line, and I like Bijan Robinson and Tyler Algier behind it. And I think Kirk Cousins is going to feel pretty good back there. False Start Falcon, good to see you. Says, good morning. B-side rap reviews. It's been a while. Hope you were doing well. But he says we improved last year at linebacker when Troy Anderson got hurt. Nate Landman was a find, and I'm interested in having those 3 healthy. J.D. Bertrand can play in this league, so he's a nice number 4. But Caden Ellis was signed to be more of a wild card, and Troy Anderson was kind of a raw, toolsy prospect who's athletic as any linebacker in this league. He didn't play a lot as a rookie, which I wasn't a fan of. I'd rather have him learn and struggle as a rookie on a team that wasn't going anywhere than learn and struggle as a second-year guy. Got a chance to sit back and learn a lot last year, and he's the most athletic. He's one of the most athletic guys on the defense, period. And then Caden Ellis was brought in to do a lot of different roles. He was brought in because he could rush the passer and didn't get a chance to do that as much with Troy Anderson's injury. So while that may have improved the linebacker group, what it did do was hurt your pass rush. With Anderson back healthy again, it's going to free Ellis up to do more things. And I am definitely interested in seeing that. Chris Walker says Arthur Smith as an offensive coordinator was an extremely bad idea. His execution, even worse. I tell you, when he'd sit in the post-game press conferences and justify, why aren't you using your 3 top 10 draft picks? Well, we didn't like the look we got. Man, oh God. Man, dictate. You've got one of the most expensive and high-cost offensive lines in the NFL. You've got 3 top 10 draft picks at the skill positions. I don't care what look you got. You can find a way to force. Oh, we didn't want to go to Jerry Rice on this play because they were rolling a safety over him. I don't care. Get the ball. Jerry Glanville, long time ago. I don't know how many of y'all had the Too Legit to Quit VHS tape, but he was on there saying, what was the strategy for the team? I'll never forget this. What was the strategy for the team in crunch time? Get the ball to Ryann. That was it. What do we do when we need to get a first down? Get the ball to Ryann. That was the strategy, dude. I think Arthur Smith is a very, very smart guy, and I think that I heard somebody say this about soccer one time, that said sometimes one of the hardest things to do is to be simple. I'm a firm believer in the keep it simple, stupid philosophy, and you don't have to trick everybody. This is a physical game. Line up and go after them. Mr. Shonoff, good to see you. Says, good morning, Scott. I think Arthur Smith is definitely looking to run the ball on us with Harris. Fields will be used in the game against us on the goal line. I think you might see Justin Fields 30% of the time anyway. I think he's gonna Mike Tomlin said that's too much talent to be sitting on the bench. So I don't think it'll be just goal line, just short yardage. But yeah, you're going to get a heavy dose of the running game. And frankly, outside of George Pickens, the receivers don't scare me over there. They are in dire need. Steelers, depending on how the season goes, they should probably either go wide receiver or quarterback, depending on how it shakes out for them in the first round. Their weapons on offense don't scare me that much. George Pickens is capable of the spectacular. He's going to play Cortland Sutton this year, who had some spectacular catches from Russell Wilson last year. But other than that, their weapons don't scare me that much. Russell Wilson, it's a good time to stack up some sacks because he'll either chuck it deep or he will spin himself into a sack. Rex, I had this question myself too. Is Ogundeji in the league anymore? I don't remember. Someone want to look it up because I mentioned Ade Ogundeji, who, like Taquan Graham, was forced into a starting role his rookie season. He sunk. Taquan swam. He stepped up and played pretty well towards the end of his season as a 5th-round pick. Ogundeji was a 4th-round pick, and he was just never any good. Tremarcy says, "Whoa, buddy, this is a different town now. Wake up and smell the rings." What do you mean that I'm cynical and not allowed to be anymore? I was at that stadium behind me when Atlanta United won the MLS Cup, and the Braves have broken that jinx since then. Falcons, they still owe us one though, don't they? They still owe us one. Bucks Rays Bolt says, really see the Bucks and Falcons both in the postseason. Yeah, that could happen. The Tampa Bay was playing really good football to end last year, beating the teams they were supposed to be and not playing down to them. Where do you get Arthur Smith fired? You get him fired when you go to Tennessee and face Will Levis for the first time and the Hall of Fame asks for the football because that's how good a game. The next week, you have Jaron Hall making his first appearance in the NFL, gets hurt, and then here comes Josh Dobbs, journeyman quarterback, comes in and tears you to pieces after being with the team for 2 days. Third game in a row in that stretch, you go out to Arizona and Kyler Murray is making his first appearance for a bad Arizona Cardinals team. You lost all 3 of them, and you were in first place. You were in first place at that time. You lost all 3 of those games. And that was right before the bye week, and they should have left Arthur Smith in Phoenix. But that was last year. Let's see. Rex says Davenport might be able to mess around and be able to step in for Jake when he retires, or Caleb McGarry. Caleb McGarry will not play. He's got 1 year left on his contract. 2 years because we haven't quite started this year yet. But he's got basically an option year next year for 2025. He will not play on that deal. It'll either be restructured or he will be gone for cost-saving moves. Get extended and lower the move. The cap hit is way too high for him on that, and something will happen with that contract. That's not a hot take either. Davenport maybe move into right tackle. Your long-term left tackle might already be on the team. It might end up being Matthew Bergeron. He was a tackle. He was drafted who could be a tackle, but could also play guard. And Michael, this is a good point. He says the first game is a hell of a test with Watt. Yeah, it is. And it's not just a mano a mano type of test. It's a scheme test because I don't want Jake Matthews one-on-one with Watt. I don't want Caleb McGarry one-on-one with Watt, period. That doesn't have anything that's not against Jake Matthews. I was just singing his praises. Pretty much any left tackle by himself is going to get beat. If I take 40 pass drops against JJ Watt, am I going to win all 40 of them? And if he gets 2 sacks, those could be game wreckers. So Greg sent me some emails. Appreciate you. I'll give it a look. Want to go through, and Terry says, man, I hope we're in position to take Malachi Starks in next year's draft. I hope the Falcons, for y'all's sake, are in position to. They're not thinking about the draft because they're playing into February. Michael Dubbs says, Glanville, now you're taking me back. Yeah, when did he take over? 1990? Or did he I don't remember if he had Dion the first year or not. Dion was 89. Andre Bruce was 88. I feel like it was 1990, and then they made the playoffs in 91 for the first time since 1981. But yes, that was a long time ago. Cardinal talking about the weapons on offense. He says, I can't believe Van Jefferson is our wide receiver too. You know who else is on the active is Scotty Miller. It's you look at the depth chart and it's you see Van Jefferson, you see Scotty Miller, you see Cordero Patterson, all on the team. You're like, this looks familiar. I will not stand for any bad talk about Cordero Patterson, though. We're not going to have that. We're not going to have any Cordero Patterson talking here. And I know one guy who won't have that bad talk is Nick. Welcome in, Nick. How you doing?
My phone died. I don't know. It was not sitting on the charger right or something. I woke up with a baby waking me up. I'm like, it must be like 4 a.m. Bleep. So dead phone, no alarm, no backup, but we have the baby alarm and we're here for a second.
Well, welcome in. We're going through the three biggest questions. I took issue with Connor Orr. He predicted the Falcons 8-9 and went through it. And what I took issue with, I was like, that's fine. What I took issue with was the statement that he says there's a lot to buy into with this Falcons team when you take a step back and think about it, that you have to buy into. And he lists some of the questions that we all have. Every team has questions, lists them. And I'm like, but my point on this is, Nick, every single one of those questions doesn't have to be answered yes. And for the most part, you've got contingency plans built in on those. You have to buy into the fact that Drake London is good and that Zach Robinson is ideally suited scheme for him. No, I don't. Those don't have to happen for the Falcons to be better than they were last year. You have to buy into the fact that Bijan Robinson will stay healthy at the game's most perilous position. Well, it'd be nice if he does, but Tyler Algier is a pretty damn good back.
Also, you could say that for every team for so many. Yeah.
So it's like, it's not like this team is built on eggshells, or it's a house of cards where one of them comes off. We have to buy into Kyle Pitts, buy into him again, even though that has been a thorny issue the last couple of years. We have to buy into Kirk Cousins coming back from an Achilles tear. So basically, for all of those things to happen, that's the only way you're going to be any better. And Nick, I said, if only one of those things happen, you're better than you were last year when you won 7 games. So I wasn't having it.
Nope. I mean, felt like a little bit of both sides in it, right? Probably Connor doing that for every team. But there are questions. I mean, the biggest one is how quickly can Cousins do and how far can Cousins take the team? Was Cousins elevated by Jefferson and O'Connell out there in Minnesota the last couple seasons, or is what we saw the last 2 seasons what Cousins' baseline is? I mean, that's really the big question here for me, but we'll see. It's going to be a good season for sure.
Yeah, because the C electrician says there's not real big depth issues here. The secondary isn't all that deep as far as cornerback goes. The edge room isn't great, but therefore an injury doesn't kill you. Because you're okay there. You're looking for upside from Judon, and for me, the 3 biggest questions I had, and then we're going to get out of here pretty quick. That's how I titled it. The 3 biggest questions I had that actually do matter, where if any one of these things goes bust, you could be in bigger trouble, was the coaching staff. It's basically a new coaching staff. Raheem Morris hasn't been a head coach in a long time. You got a first-time offensive coordinator, first-time play caller. You got a first-time play caller on defense, too. I still think Raheem Morris is going to have a big thing to say with the defensive coordinator, but those can be perilous when we talk about first times. That Zach Robinson's calling plays for the first time, Jimmy Lake calling plays for the first time. Those can be a bigger factor than any one of what Connor Orr had to say on that.
Yeah, without a doubt. I mean, we'll see what happens with the team. I mean, can the superstars, the guys who have been hampered by the quarterback play and the offense, become stars? You have so many elite investments on the offensive side of the ball, huge investments. Can Pitts finally promise? Like you think about all the talent you passed for Pitts. Can Pitts become the guy? I mean, it's the guys that you drafted to be difference makers need to show out now. The excuses have run out.
Yeah, you said something I wanted to, and this is why I interrupt Nick all the time, because if I let him finish, I forget what the hell I was going to say because I'm too ADD. I read the chat and see 4 other comments and forget what I was going to say. Was the guys coming back. I think that was my number 2 was the guys coming back from injury was kind of on the whole. How well does this group come back from injury, including Kirk Cousins, including Grady Jarrett, including Troy Anderson, including Matt Judon? Those are 4 players that are coming off season-ending injuries. As a whole, do they come back to somewhat close to, or can they be better than what they were in 2024?
I mean, it's possible. We'll see a lot. It's just it's the dice roll, right? Every single time, can every single one of these things happen?
I know what it was now. See, I'm going to interrupt you, Nick. This is why
it's okay.
The Drake London, Zach Robinson thing,
Mm-hmm.
was we have to buy into the fact that Drake London is good and the Zach Robinson scheme is ideally suited for him. Do we buy into the fact that Drake London has been good?
I mean, I would buy into the fact that he's been good. It's just
he hasn't been, he's not stratosphere, but he's good. He's good. Do you think he's going to be worse playing for Kirk Cousins and Zach Robinson than he's been playing for Arthur Smith with Marcus Mariota, Desmond Ridder, and Taylor Heineke throwing him the ball?
Probably not.
That's a buy. I'll buy that.
Yeah.
What do you sell it? What are you buying? I'm buying that. I'm buying that Drake London is going to be at least as good as he's been. That's a pretty good one.
Yeah, with the caveat that he stays healthy, right? But again, you can do that for every single prediction player of all time. Chiefs are going to be good. Well, only if Patrick Mahomes stays healthy. Well, no bleep. Duh. But Corey, 38 sacks, 11 interceptions for the defense. I don't know where that ranks amongst the other teams in the league, but that would be a good season. Seems like that would be important. Or a good one, especially the takeaways. I mean, 11 interceptions, that's not even turnovers. So that'd be great.
And Smart Ride coming in. Corey, that's actually a little bit down from last year, 38 sacks, which it might be, but I expect the numbers to go up. I think they had 42 last year. I would expect that to go up a little bit. And then as the sacks go up, as the pressures go up, the interceptions should go up. I don't know if they had 11 last year. The teams aren't throwing the ball away as much as they used to. But Drake isn't a wide receiver on a playoff team. Wide receiver 1 on a playoff team. Well, if the Falcons make the playoffs and he's a wide receiver 1, is he a wide receiver 1 on a playoff team? I'd have to go and look back at all the teams that made the playoffs last year and see where he ranks. There's a lot of good receivers in this league. There's a lot of them. There's lots and lots. Is Drake London good? Yes, he is. And he says his yards after the catch is horrible. That's the entire freaking team. And I lamented that for all season, that nobody catches the ball in stride in Arthur Smith. It's all hooks. It's all fades, but it's all contested catches. There's no slants. There's no swing passes. There is no yards after the catch. And by God, if I've got a 4-4 tight end, I want to see him catching the ball in motion and not motion coming back for the ball. So part of that was scheme. That was the entire team. But if I've got a big 220-pound, 6'5" wide receiver, let's get him the ball in motion and see what he can do against a 190-pound defensive back. See if he can get a few extra yards. So the entire Arthur Smith system was poor when it comes to yards after the catch, and it's something I'm greatly looking forward to, Nick.
He had 460 yards after catch his last season when he was only like 19 years old or something at USC, which is not bad at all. I mean, that's a substantial amount of yards in his career, 886. So that's not nothing. I mean, it's kind of weird because he played a lot of big slot right at USC. So, and it was that Clay Helton? Was that the air raid stuff out there? USC
I don't
stuff?
know. Who we see run a screen? Was it Jonnu Smith who took a screen pass and ran about 70 yards up the sidelines? That's about it.
Yeah.
But every time I felt like every catch the Falcons made was contested. And again, part of that has to do with ball placement also, with accuracy of the quarterback. You start hearing about Kirk Cousins asking, where do you want to catch that ball? Never really thought of that. never really thought of that. See, Drake's not gonna have to break his neck anymore to make a catch. At least every catch. He'll still elevate for some, but he's not going to get back body dropped on those. But listen, y'all, we're going to hop out of here. Hope y'all have a great Labor Day.
Yeah.
Rest of your day. Nick, do you have anything else you wanted to hop onto real quick?
No, glad I could make it at the end. A little bit dazed and confused. No coffee, but we're here. We're hanging out, and happy Labor Day.
Yeah, and I agree with this. Bucks Rays Bolt says the Falcons won the offseason on the paper show. It's on the field that's got to count. Yeah, for sure. None the offseason, but the thing is when you're doing predictions and all that type of stuff right now, all we're talking about is what's on paper. That's all we've got to go on, and to discount what you see that's been done on paper when you're making a paper prediction, it's a little short-sighted for me. But on that note, we are going to get out of here. 3 questions, Jerome. Then I'll let Jerome hit his big 3 questions. Is can AK step it up? Who really is the number 2 quarterback? And does Bijan have year 2 progression? We've got questions all over the place. How good can Troy Anderson be coming back, in his 3rd year? Can Clark Phillips step up? There's questions everywhere. If let's say answer no to these, can AK step it up? And the answer is no. That's okay. Matt Judon, that's why he was signed. Because AK is probably going to be a situational guy. That's kind of where he's trending. Who's really the cornerback 2? Right now, it's like Mike Hughes and Clark Phillips figuring out how the role and how much progression will there be in year 2 for Bijan. If I answer no to all of these, the Falcons could still be in the playoffs. And that's kind of my point, is you don't have to have a yes. This team is now deep enough that I don't have to pin my hopes that every single question that you have going into the season, if any one of these fails, it's a house of cards and you're doomed. Can AK step it up? No. He's going to be a 5-6 sack guy for the rest of his career. Okay. Does that doom your defense? No. Cornerback 2, someone will step up, but should they be better than, Jeff Okudah in a part-time role last year? We'll see. Having Justin Simmons back there with Jesse Bates should help. And Clark Phillips was pretty damn good last year. And how much will Bijan progress? Well, 1,500 yards of Bijan, even if he doesn't progress. And then Tyler Algier is all pretty good. But this is a deep team that has some insurance built in really the most important places. Now it's just a matter of there's some holes that will keep you from becoming. I don't think the pass rush is good enough to become a stratospheric team. That's kind of the way I see it right now. And is the offense, they're going to have to prove it to me before I say, oh yeah, they're ready to be NFC, contenders. Maybe they are. But on paper, I'm not there yet. There's a lot of improvement that has to be made from last year still.
Yep, and so much newness. So we'll see what happens, but should be a really exciting season, and expectations are high for a reason.
But I only need a little improvement at quarterback to win 9 games. That's why 8 is kind of silly to me. Yeah. So on that note, at least on paper, it can all blow up. We've all seen it. We're all been grown-up Falcons fans. Real quick, we're going to come in. I still see color. Not impressed with Terry's draft, but his specialty is pro player personnel, and he's done well there. He's done really well on the free agents for sure. I was looking at this yesterday. Was it 2021? And then we'll get out of here. Atlanta Falcons draft ref. I love Pro Football Reference. Falcons. Because you look and there's some. The first draft was Kyle Pitts. Let's go through this. And their very first draft was the Kyle Pitts draft. And it was Kyle Pitts, Richie Grant, not so good. Jalen Mayfield, horrendous. Darren Hall, no. Drew Dahlman, all right, there's a starter. Taquan Graham, solid. Adeoye Ogundeji, no. Avery Williams has been a hit for the 5th round. And Frank Darby, 6th round wide receiver. That's probably, if Kyle Pitts can step up and be, again, it's probably a B- in that very first draft. Now, if Richie, we'll see what Richie, God, they're talking up Richie. Like, we talked up Richie before he started playing football. Jalen Mayfield was a disaster. 2022, you go Drake London, Ebiketie, Troy Anderson, Ritter, D'Angelo Malone, Tyler Algier, Justin Schaefer, John Fitzpatrick. There's some solid contributors in there, Nick. That's
Yeah.
You go London, Ebiketie, Anderson, Algier, and I got 4 pretty good contributors in that draft. That's not bad. And then Robinson, Bergeron, Zach Harrison, Clark Phillips, DeMarco Helms, Javon Gwynn last year. Dude, that looks awesome.
That one looks pretty good.
That looks really good. Now we can argue about positional value on Bijan Robinson, but did you get a Pro Bowl player? Yeah, probably. All right, y'all. We're gonna get out of here. We're gonna be there. We'll be back on Wednesday. We'll start digging into the Steelers game a little bit, and they're kind of team turmoil this year. So let's keep it that way when they come to Atlanta. Want to say thanks to Coach Greg Custom Kicks, Atlanta Jet Jones. Greg's come in twice. Corey Carter coming in a pair of times. And Keith and Ellen Johnson with the stars over on Facebook. Thank you for helping to keep the lights on. We're going to get out of here. We'll see you Wednesday. Y'all have a great rest of your Labor Day weekend, and have a good day. Appreciate you being here.
Peace.